Hi, Steve. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm fine.
Good.
Fine.
Well, I guess with your permission, then, I'll get started.
Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, in regard to the new live album, the title 1975 to 1985, of course, happens to overlap with the period of your association with Bruce, and we'd like to know what your involvement with him has meant in terms of influence on the live performance.
Well, I became involved with Bruce during the Born to Run album, and since that time I've been, first I produced, co-produced with Bruce, and then with Steve Van Zandt several of the albums, and continued working with him on all the records. And I also, after we worked together for some time in the studio, became his manager. And, in both of those capacities, obviously, I have a role to play. But Bruce, you must understand, is a person who sits and takes in input, from a variety of people. There's always quite a few of us who work on the record, but, he is a very strong-minded and confident person. And so at the end of the day, it's his vision that gets best expressed, I really see my role as, being very supportive, contributing my ideas naturally, when they seem to be helpful, and basically trying to help him realize his ideas. So to say anything more would be, the rest is for others to judge. There's not that much I can really say. If you know what I mean.
In a Westwood One interview, I can recall Bruce immediately citing you as sort of his main sounding board for feeling out new ideas. How did he gain such solid faith in you?
Steve, the thing is that it's hard to answer a question like that without sounding immodest. And, I think I have good ideas, and obviously Bruce has found them to be helpful. I think in the case of this live album in particular, this was something that he and I discussed, the merits of whether or not we should be doing this record. And I had a strong opinion that it would be a good time to do this record. And I had listened very carefully to these tapes over the years. Bruce had really been somewhat, disinterested, wasn't an idea that inherently was exciting for him. And so we talked about it last October and November quite a bit, and I was very enthusiastic about it. So we started together to listen to the tapes, and I think this was a case in which, it was pretty obvious once we started to listen to them, that this would be a good thing for us to do this year. So you might say there is an example where I was able to help to suggest something that turned out to be a good idea for us. I'm very excited about this record.
How about in the past? Have there been any notable examples of times when you've kind of steered him in the right direction, or times when you could have given him possible bum steers?
Oh, bum steers. Well, I'll tell you, on each record, we're two separate people, and of course, on some of the records, Steve was involved as the producer, and he's a very brilliant, strong person. And our production partner, Chuck Watkin, is also involved. And Bruce is a very confident person, surrounds himself with people I think of as being very strong. And we all have our ideas. And they get tested in the course of making a record. Sometimes you might have a situation with Bruce where he writes so many songs, and then as we try to assemble the record, there's very intensive review and discussion may not hear the merits of himself. Sometimes he may be, writers may be a little bit too close to the record, or to the song, and may not hear how good it is. Sometimes I have a very strong opinion about a song because I have a personal reaction to it, and in the end I'm overruled, and usually it's for the best. It's not a question of, it's not a black and white type of thing. Generally, the way Bruce and I work in particular is we have so much, I think, respect for each other in our work and our approach to people, that we always struggle to find a consensus. We always try to find a way. We try and listen very carefully to each other and try and come to decisions that express the valid ideas that each of us have. And over time we tend to evolve a common point of view about things, and this is the strength of the communication that we have.
It's quite amazing that you should go, from being a writer, a journalist, to somewhat of a right-arm man to Bruce. How is it that you fostered this relationship?
It was a 1 in a billion situation, but sometimes people just did meet while I was still an active journalist, and I did write some well-known things about Bruce, and although we had met before I'd written them, and we just had a very spontaneous and I think natural way of relating with each other, and really our relationship began almost as soon as we met. We just found we could communicate with each other very, very easily, very well. And at that particular time, Bruce didn't seem to have anybody else in his professional life that was giving him that kind of help. And so, he was in search of the right kind of assistance. And I think he had some intuition that I could be helpful. And so, he asked me to get involved with the Born to Run album, which was in progress but was not going all that well at that point. And I think things went very well, and I think that so that was really where it all started. It was a very natural human type of thing. It wasn't really. It was a personal thing. It wasn't a. That's what it was. It was a personal thing. So let me ask you a question, Steve, if I could interrupt for a second.
Okay.
How's our record doing over there?
Well, I mean, it's just going.
When I say that, what seems to be the response? I haven't heard very much about the response in Japan. How do people seem to feel about it?
Well, I wish I could. I had something to tell you, but it's just going on sale today.
I see. I'm confused. I thought it would have. I see.
Yeah, November 14th is the date of release here.
So you were actually a few days behind Europe and the United States. I mean, I'm in a bit of shock right now because the record in the United States. I don't know what you've been told, but the record in the United States is like it's very strange because it just exploded in an unprecedented fashion, and it's been quite intense to focus on the record. Happily, it's been very well received. This record, in my mind, is really a culmination of everything that we've done for these 10 years, and it was a very challenging thing that we set for ourselves, to not just make a live album, but to really try to put together stuff in a way that tells the story of the last 10 years, of Bruce's development. And personally, my interpretation is, when you get the record, you listen to it at the very beginning of the record, you see Bruce in almost as a very young man, sort of with that Thunder Road at the beginning, heading out into the world, and with this tremendous openness and this tremendous innocence, and his record unfolds, and see the emergence of Bruce as a much more complicated, person, much more in conflict, a person trying to, comprehend all the paradoxes that sort of surround them living in the United States. And we look at it as really not only just a live album, but we really look at it as an album that is really our next album. It both looks backward and also looks forward. That's the idea that I had in my mind about it. And I think that, there's a section on the album, Born in the USA, which everybody's very familiar with, and a new song called Thief, and the song The River, and the old Edwin Starr song, War. And we put these 4 songs together very deliberately, and they sort of express something new, I think, that really isn't on any other Bruce record, which is really making an almost international, a universal type comment. It's not just limited to sort of this vision of the United States, the problems that are here. I think he really is trying to take almost the biggest perspective he's ever taken when you listen to all these songs together. So that's a very special part of the record. And when I think Bruce realized that we could put songs together, and when Bruce and I discussed it, we realized, well, we could put songs together, and by which songs we chose, and where we put them, and how we sequence them, we could say things that we might not have actually said anywhere before in any of the past albums. So that as a live album didn't just have to be sort of a retrospective, but it could be something that said something new. This is what really excited him. And this is what we tried to do with this live album. And this is why we hope people will feel that it is more than just a live album. That it has a certain depth that people generally have associated with Bruce and everything he's done. This is what we aim for. People will decide what they think about. We worked very hard. Let me also, at production level, all of us, Bruce and myself, and all the people who you see on the back of the record worked very hard, try and do 2 things at once. Make sure the sound on the record was totally natural and relaxed and as live as it could be, and yet as high quality as there's ever been on a live album. And just, worked in the studio dealing with the technology that's available to try and help us do this very, very slowly and carefully, which is why the whole thing took a year. And we treated it just as seriously as we did a studio record. And this was very important because on the one hand, decided not to do any overdubbing except the bare minimum. In other words, on this record, about 1 line on the whole record that Bruce didn't actually sing. That isn't actually live. Maybe the whole record is live, the original recording intact. But on the other hand, when we went to mix them, we tried to refine things from the point of view of sound to make sure everything was as clear as we could possibly make, and so that the record would have a crispness and a directness that a lot of times people do not hear on a live album. This was our goal, and I'm very happy with the result. And I can tell you that Bruce is very happy with the result. One of the things about this live album is that this was an album that came from the artist. This is not an album. A lot of times live albums are out there, record company wants that, type of thing. This was an album that we treated exactly the same way we treat our studio records. And Bruce was the driving force behind it once again, as always. So that's some of the background about this particular record and a little bit about, how I've been able to contribute right now to this particular situation. Sorry to interrupt. I hope this is helping you there. But what else have you got there?
Well, absolutely. I think you just answered about 5 questions.
Okay.
Often the release of a live album will sort of mark the end of a phase in an artist's career, but from what you've been telling me, it appears that this album is no more than a part of Bruce's natural evolution as an artist, as any other album would be. So it doesn't exactly mark. Well, it does mark the beginning of a new direction of sorts, I suppose.
I think it does. Look, I think we try to do two things at the same time. Obviously, it sums up the past. That's obviously there. Okay. But at the same time, I think we try to do it in a way where it's not just some nostalgic thing that is just sort of purely in the past, but something that, by the way we put it together and the things that Bruce says, also, sort of looks ahead, if you follow me. So, now, when you say direction, does this mean, Bruce's next record that he makes is the idea? Sometimes when people put out a live album, the record they put out after is like completely different than what they've been doing before. Like, that's when you change that, you make a strong change in direction. I don't see that happening at all. I see Bruce as a person who has evolved record for record in a very natural way. He doesn't just go, in wild swings back and forth, And I would think that we would just continue in a natural way. There's always a balance of sort of new and old on each record, and I think that that's sort of our approach, our style.
Okay, well
that's what people can count on from Bruce.
How about in your own case? How does your role in the creative process differ from, say, that of Chuck Plotkin's?
Chuck is number one. Chuck is more of a technical person. He takes a lot of responsibility for the supervision of sound related, But Chuck is also, like myself, very interested in very good sound support to Bruce about the song, and about all of the ideas involved in the record. So Chuck has got we do a lot of the same thing. We're just two different people, and it's useful for Bruce that just has a good feeling for both of them. Chuck certainly is more involved in the technical, you could say. Sometimes I might be a little bit more involved in the song part of the thing, But we both comment on everything. In other words, I'll get involved in the technical if I don't like the way it's going, and Chuck gets involved in the songs if he has strong ideas. And it's a very relaxed type of thing. Look, we all worked on this record. Bruce, me, Chuck, our chief engineer, Toby Scott, who's been with us for a while now, and Bob Clearmountain, who mixed Born in the USA and mixed his album. We all worked together for a year. Bob was just 12 weeks into the next record. And we never, it's not even a situation where you have anything where there's like an argument. It never happened. A bunch of grown-ups trying to make a record, think things through, and do the best job they can. That's our style. That's evolved over these years. That's if you would come to a Bruce Springsteen recording session, it's boring most of the time, except for the music, because the atmosphere is just strictly business. There are never any guests there. It's just people working real hard at their job, and working real well with each other. It would look like any other well-run place to work. It's a very serious type of thing. It's a very serious place. It's serious work, and everybody acts that way. That's the kind of people Bruce always has around. So, and this is our method. This is how we do it.
In your own case, when you used to just be a journalist, you were writing about music objectively, whereas now the music being created has a direct bearing, of course, on your livelihood. Does this change your approach to it? Do you still?
No, I'm a very fortunate person. The reason I say that is very simple. I was a person who loved music, and I saw somebody at a certain point in my life who I thought was the best at this that I'd ever, encountered, and I got the chance to work with him. And I'm a person who's living out a dream, I'm a person who's got to do something that some people dream about, journalists or whatever, and I got to do it. I got to participate. I got to learn and to be part of something I think is very special, and I think if I was a critic today, I think I would probably love the records that I make today. I would, of course, I wouldn't be objective about it, in that sense, and that's true. But I was a journalist for 10 years, and I wrote a tremendous amount. I was very prolific, and by the time I stopped writing, I didn't really feel like I had anything more. I had written so much and thought so hard about all these things, and I'm very proud of a lot of what I wrote. And I felt I was ready to jump in, and I felt I had the ability, and others obviously agreed. And so, I made that change, which was really a 1 in a million type thing, And, I know Peter Bogdanovich, the movie director in the United States, and he was a journalist, and he became a movie director. And we occasionally compared notes because we both people, got to do something that we didn't expect to get to do. We started out, not many other people started journalism and then go on to be the thing that they were originally writing about. It's incredibly interesting. And to this day, I feel tremendous gratitude towards Bruce because of that particular opportunity.
As producer and manager, what sort of things do you attach the most importance to in the promotion of Bruce?
Well, our approach is very naturalistic, and we, like take this particular album, we put the album out, we will do intelligent things, put out a single, there will be a video, that's fine. At some point, if Bruce has something that he feels he'd like to say, maybe Bruce is doing two interviews. Apart from that, we do very little. We try and supervise the record company and make sure that the type of things that they do are consistent with our approach and our taste and our style. But basically, Bruce is at a point where I think most people would agree that he is an artist of the people. He don't reach people by, quote, selling Bruce Springsteen. What you really do is you try and just let people, make contact with him and discover him for himself because that's what works best. Now, it is true that Bruce has a tendency to create so much excitement. His music creates excitement. People do get very excited about him. And so there's always this very excited air around him. But the thing is, that is something that is fine as long as it's natural. At the point anybody ever tries to manufacture that type of thing, then it's just, that's not us, that's not Bruce, that's what we try not to do. We just try to encourage things to be as natural as possible. That's my philosophy on it. And I think it's worked well.
Alrighty. Bruce has always been sort of interview shy. Has your being a former journalist sort of warmed him to the mass media?
Well, he does. No, you see, Steve, he does. He selectively does do some interviews. Usually, each time he puts a record out, but he only does them for a reason. In other words, a record will come out, and people will discuss it and have different ideas about it, and then maybe he'll decide to do an interview, a few interviews, to sort of clarify some things, or to give people a little bit better idea of what he intended, or something like that, He doesn't do an interview for the sake of doing an interview or to get some personal publicity for himself. This is not something that motivates him. Bruce lives in the world of ideas. He's interested in ideas. And so that motivates him. And if he has an idea and something to say, well, then do an interview. And if he doesn't do an interview in order to get his picture on the cover of a magazine. This is something he doesn't do. You know, at this point there's no need for him to, but he never did it. You know.
How about the way he's been treated in the mass media? What's your opinion of that?
Very, very fairly, with great affection, by the overwhelming majority. And, you know, I think that it's a very rewarding thing. Bruce is somebody who is well respected and treated with affection by the overwhelming majority of journalists around the world. On our last tour, I mean, I must have read 10,000 reviews, 9,999 of them were very positive, sympathetic, and interested and fair, you know. And it's a very unusual and happy thing. It does really apply to the international press. I mean, you know, I don't read Japanese, but many of the articles that appeared there were translated for us, and they were beautiful. Many of them were tremendous, you know. So great.
That brings to mind a comment made by John Hammond, who I interviewed a couple of years ago, who said that he, all the great performers he's brought to the fore have had this sort of honesty as a point in common, and he said the same of Bruce. Do you think it's that sort of honesty that gets across, and maybe that's what positively impresses people?
Bruce is as genuine a person as I've ever known, and I do think it comes across. Is what you see and what you get with Bruce. The person that you think Bruce is, and think Bruce is, that's who he is. So I think John's comment was very, very wise and very correct, and it's always been my experience. And I think he would extend. And when he comes to Tokyo, and when he gets up and learns enough Japanese so that he can say, when he's in my hometown, in Japanese, you know, this is from my hometown, your hometown, and the audience hears because they understand. This is a very sincere thing to say. He is showing respect and showing desire to reach people and communicate, which is what I think his whole life is about. You know, that's how I see it.
Going back 12 years ago when you made your famous "I have seen rock and roll's future" comment, do you think it was the same sort of honesty that had that sort of impression on you, or how would you describe it?
What happened there was, I got to say, what happened there was just an overwhelming thing for me. It was a revelation, and it was a musical experience. It was a tremendous musical experience. I always had a vision in my head of what I thought rock and roll was very best could be. And that particular night, I heard something that was the closest to what I had been imagined I ever heard. And that's what I tried to say.
So it just happened to be in an overwhelming.
Good. It was just that good. Now, many other people have had a similar experience watching Bruce over the years, and I always enjoy it. I always enjoy sort of, you know, being back at the hotel, in the hotel lobby, or maybe backstage, or maybe, you know, as we're leaving, and I see some man come up, overcome with excitement, who explains to me they just seen the show for the first time, and I always enjoy it because I know what they feel.
You seem to be the perfect man to ask.
I look at them and I know what they're feeling, you know.
All right, this is going to overlap a little bit with what we were talking about before about the mass media and whatnot. I think you're the perfect man to ask this. Like, say, Rolling Stone magazine used to feature the Rolling Stones as sort of their poster boys, right? And they've been replaced now by, you know, Bruce Springsteen mainly, and by U2 some of the time, and I think that's rather significant in that the Rolling Stones sort of represents a collective attitude of rock fans mainly in America as well as rock fans around the world. Why have they taken this stance in regard to Bruce and U2?
Well, I think that what's happened is just that Bruce is 1986, he's right now. And I think for many people, younger people, and so forth, his generation, he is the person who epitomizes, for a lot of people in America, you say rock and roll, and they say Bruce Springsteen. That's the first name that comes to their mind. And so it's a natural thing that the focus tends to shift, from over one generation to another, from one person to another,
So you think that with every 5 years or so, there comes this sort of representative act?
Or maybe look, the Rolling Stones were for 20 years, the Rolling Stones, I'll be happy if we can continue for as long as they did, do as well as they did with so much of their stuff, but I think right now, I think that Bruce has obviously created a unique space for himself, in the mind of many people, and he's earned it.
Having garnered a solid working class following, as well as the support of a lot of critics, and of course all that lies between, he's sort of at a peak right now. When does that end? Like, for example, that there's bound to be sort of an emperor's clothes type of backlash.
Well, we've been very fortunate that hasn't occurred. I assume that sometime it will, but our attitude will be, look, Bruce had a very big album a little earlier in his career called The River. It was very big in the United States. The next album he put out was Nebraska. The obvious thing for Bruce to have done then would have been to put out a record that builds on the successes. He didn't feel like doing it. He put out something else. Which is to say that we are not guided and never will be guided by external considerations. Bruce is obviously, like any person, going to be more popular or less popular this year or that. But I think that the key to the whole thing is never to try and get involved with second guessing the audience and what we like now and so on and so forth between them. But to always be concerned with doing the best work that you can be doing. Sometimes the record will sell this, sometimes it'll sell half of that, sometimes it'll sell more, sometimes it'll sell less. That's life. That's inevitable. You can't sit around thinking about that. The only thing that you have that you can control is, am I doing the best that I can do? Am I making the most honest statement, the most honest music I know how to make? If you can, over time, I believe, this is what will interest people. This is the key to having a healthy, positive, long, productive musical career. This is my philosophy. So, there you go. That's quite a lot of philosophy there.
Back in '74, Bruce was rock's future. Now, of course, he's rock's present, I suppose.
Yeah.
You don't see anything in the offing, do you? Nothing. You obviously are very sensitive to this kind of thing. Are you just completely so concerned with Bruce and his music now?
Well, we don't look. The point I'm trying to make is there are many great talents around, or potentially great talents, and obviously people will come along and do new things that'll be very interesting. And we always listen to other people. Bruce is a tremendous listener of music, but this is not our primary concern. Our concern is, what are we doing? Are we doing the best that we could be doing? You see, it's not important about. It's important to learn from others if they're doing good work, but it doesn't really control that much.
I I think there's maybe one point you should clarify, especially for the Japanese fans over here. The success of Born in the USA has been labeled, or should I say conjectured, by some as a sort of manifestation of this new wave of conservatism that's come with Reagan.
Yeah, this has come up. This is silly. You know? People have this idea. This is just silly. Born in the USA, I think, you know, I would let me give you my interpretation. I never like to speak for Bruce, you know, and say and what I would say would certainly be a little different than what he would say. But my interpretation of the song is that the song about a very disappointed and embittered and forgotten type of American, as some of those who fought in the Vietnam War were. And it's a song in which that character, as Bruce, you know, sings about him, certainly questions, you know, what he did, why it was necessary for him to go, what it meant. You know, and at the end of the song, you know, is a picture of a guy totally despondent, totally isolated by the forces of work in his own country. And yet there is that glimmer of optimism that characteristically leads to live in the sense that he's defiant, the character is defiant, and he's going to keep, you know, he's going to keep trying to find a way. So to me, it was a very complex, thoughtful song, you know, and you know, some people have gone so far as to suggest there was some similarity between Bruce and like Rambo, the character from the American movies, you know, and this is one of the reasons why I enjoy the fact that Bruce chose to put this song War on the new album, which is a very strong anti-war song, and that would tend to disabuse anybody of the idea that Born in the USA is some Rambo type of song, you know. So I do think it's good to clarify that, yeah.
It's interesting that it should come along at a time when
Bruce is a people-oriented person. Bruce is interested in the human reality, wherever he finds it all over the world. And I would say this about Bruce: I think his thinking about America is patriotic. I think he loves America, as I do, and almost everybody who lives here does. But it is not nationalistic.
I think it's rather significant that it came out at a time when singing about America became very much in vogue.
Well, a lot of things followed after us, that came after us, you know, that became sort of a transit, and people look back and say, gee, Bruce started all of this. Well, that's not what we intended to start, but okay, that's what happened. And we just set out to make a record. You know, in the United States, they have commercials about cars that look like the video for Born in the USA. You know, and they have songs that sound like Born in the USA. You know, I mean, you know, there was a certain attempt to, you could almost say, co-opt what Bruce was trying to do with the Born in the USA album, but I think, like I say, there's some parts of this album, this live album, that'll set people straight if there was any confusion.
Well, that you said it sort of sparked a kind of trend, but do you think that's just a superfluous surface type of thing, or do you think people are seriously becoming reflective about being American?
Well, I think there's a variety of things. I think they're sort of trying to market things, you know, market commercial product groups sort of appeal to Americanism as a superficial trend that will come and go, you know. I think that there are quite a few people who have gone on to try and make some thoughtful statements about the problems in America recently. I think that, that's a healthy thing. That's a healthy thing. And I think the we are the world phenomenon, which, I think got people to try and think a little bit more about troubled aspects of the world and not sit around and be so totally self-congratulatory as people sometimes are. Sit around and be so totally self-congratulatory as people sometimes are. That was the first thing. So, Steve, how are we doing there? Because I'm sort of I'm about running out of time. Are you pretty well covered for what you needed there?
Just about. Maybe one last thing about the live album.
Yes.
First of all, when did you first conceive the idea? Bruce wrote down the album there that you sent him a cassette of 4 tapes.
I'll tell you what happened. When Bruce, after every album, Bruce and I have always sat and talked and said, should we do a live album? And we both very quickly agreed that we should. In this particular case, I was listening to the tape as the tour was coming to an end. And I was really getting excited. And at some point, I got some ideas about different things that we could do. And just as Bruce wrote there, I did think up this particular group of songs and put them on a cassette. And said, suggested he give a listen. And that this might be an example of a kind of juxtaposition that make the whole album be a very fresh type of thing and not just some boring, souvenir of the show, some more superficial kind of record. And that really got it started. The other big turning point came around December or so when we made the decision that if we did the record, we wouldn't limit it to the 1984-85 tour. When we started to go back to the early tapes, we felt they were just as valid as the later ones, and we started to think about what would it be like if we put them all together to try and just give a total feeling for the growth and development of an artist. And once we decided to do that, by January, we knew we were going to make this record. That was the idea, and we had the idea right then. And so then from January on, it was the process of listening to all the tapes, figuring out which songs we most wanted on the record and which performances were the best. Sometimes there's a song on the record we didn't originally think of putting on the record, but we liked the performance so much, we put it on. There are songs that people have said, gee, why aren't they on the record? Sometimes it's just because we didn't have a real good tape of it. We dealt with the tape as it was there, And so we, over the next 6 months, sifted through everything and sorted everything out and came up with the sequence that's on the record. And in June, we started to mix it. And we mixed it through August. And we were done.
And now, of course, what's on everybody's mind is how about the visual counterpart? The
visual counterpart, we do, there have been quite a few rumors here about it, and we do have, some excellent tape. But we don't have any immediate plans to release that material, and we really haven't had our time to turn our attention to it thoroughly. So that awaits some kind of review and investigation. We'll just have to see.
Okay, well, I guess...
At the moment, there is no plan, there's no scheduled plan. Material exists, but there is no plan.
Okay, well, that pretty much answers that. Then I want to thank you very much for your time, Mr. Landau, and hope to see you over here sometime.
Okay, very good. I'm very happy to talk to you, and good luck with your story there.
All right, and Mr. Kikuno from the record company says hello.
Oh, is he right there?
Yeah, he's right here. Hold on just a second.
Each other. In our work and our approach to people, that we always struggle to find a consensus. We always try to find a way. We try and listen very carefully to each other and try and come to decisions that express the valid ideas that each of us have, and over time we tend to evolve a common point of view about things, and this is the strength of the communication that we have.
It's quite amazing that you should go, from being a writer, a journalist, to somewhat of a right-arm man to Bruce. How is it that you fostered this relationship?
It was a 1 in a billion situation, but sometimes people just did meet while I was still an active journalist, and I did write some well-known things about Bruce, and although we had met before I'd written them, and we just had a very spontaneous and I think natural way of relating with each other, and really our relationship began almost as soon as we met. We just found we could communicate. Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm fine.
Good.
I'm fine.
Well, I guess with your permission, then I'll get started.
Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, in regard to the new live album, the title 1975 to 1985, of course, happens to overlap with the period of your association with Bruce, and we'd like to know what your involvement with him has meant in terms of influence on the live performance.
Well, I became involved with Bruce during the Born to Run album, and since that time I've been, first I co-produced with Bruce, and then with Steve Van Zandt several of the albums, and continued working with him on all the records. And I also, after we worked together for some time in the studio, became his manager. And, in both of those capacities, obviously, I have a role to play. But Bruce, you must understand, is a person who sits and takes in input, from a
bum steers.
Oh, bum steers as well. I'll tell you, on each record, we're two separate people, and of course, on some of the records, Steve was involved as a producer. He's a very brilliant, strong person, and our production partner, Chuck Plotkin, is also involved. And Bruce is a very confident person, surrounds himself with people I think of as being very strong, and we all have our ideas. And they get tested in the course of making a record. Sometimes you might have a situation with Bruce where he writes so many songs, and then as we try to assemble the record, there's very intensive review and discussion about which songs sort of come together and make the most coherent statement. And I might have a very strong opinion about a song that Bruce may not hear the merits of himself. Sometimes he may be writers may be a little bit too close to the record, or to the song, and may not hear how good it is. Sometimes I have a very strong opinion about a song because I have a personal reaction to it, and in the end I'm overruled, and usually it's for the best. It's not a question of, not a black and white type of thing. Generally, the way Bruce and I work in particular is we have so much, I think, respected ideas, and obviously that Bruce has found them to be helpful. I think in the case of this live album in particular, this was something that he and I discussed the merits of whether or not we should be doing this record. And I had a strong opinion that it would be a good time to do this record. And I had listened very carefully to these tapes over the years. Bruce had really been somewhat disinterested, wasn't an idea that inherently was exciting for him. And so we talked about it last October and November quite a bit, and I was very enthusiastic about it. So we started together to listen to the tapes, and I think this was a case in which, it was pretty obvious once we started to listen to them, that this would be a good thing for us to do this year. So he might say, here is an example where I was able to help to suggest something that turned out to be a good idea for us. I'm very excited about this record.
How about in the past? Have there been any notable examples of times when you've kind of steered him in the right direction, or times when you could have given him possible...
variety of people. There's always quite a few of us who work on the record, but, you know, he is a very strong-minded and confident person. And so at the end of the day, you know, it's his vision that gets best expressed, you know. I really see my role as, you know, being very supportive, contributing my ideas naturally, when you know, when they seem to be helpful, and basically trying to help him realize his ideas, you know. So to say anything more would be, you know, the rest is for others to judge. You know, there's not that much I can really say, you know, if you know what I mean.
In a Westwood One interview, I can recall Bruce immediately citing you as sort of his main sounding board for feeling out new ideas. How did he gain such solid faith in you?
You know, Steve, the thing is that it's hard to answer a question like that without sounding immodest. And, I mean, I think I have